Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Scott Randall. I gave 30 years of my life to Altera Freight Systems. 30 damn years. And how did it end? With a coffee cup in my hand and a smile on my face, being told I was no longer aligned with the company's forward-thinking direction. Translation: I was too old. Marissa Delacroix, the new VP of Digital Operations, was barely older than my daughter. She stood at the front of that conference room with her perfect teeth and AI-generated slides, throwing around words like cloud native and agile transformation. To her, I wasn't a human being, I was legacy infrastructure. It was a Tuesday. I'll never forget it. She clicked to a slide titled Optimizing Talent for a Digital Future, and, without looking up, said, "We thank Scott for his decades of loyalty, but we believe it's time to bring in talent better suited to our evolving architecture." I just sat there. Heart pounding. Face burning. I built their damn architecture. Literally. The servers, the databases, the custom logistics engine that let us shave millions off shipping costs. The tools that kept 900 trucks moving across 5 states in real time, that was all me. Late nights. Missed birthdays. Code written by flashlight during a power outage in 2008 when a freak blizzard killed the grid. But none of that mattered to Marissa. All she saw was an old man with knowledge she couldn't find on Stack Overflow. I understand, I told her quietly. She blinked, almost surprised I didn't argue. I could have begged. Pleaded. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. HR will be in touch about transition documents, she said, already flipping to the next slide. I wasn't even worth a handshake. I went home that afternoon in a fog. The house was too quiet. Ellen, my wife, passed away 3 years ago. And our son, Michael, lives overseas. My world, my purpose, had always been that company. My code. My systems. That was my family too. I sat in my garage staring at the old server rack I kept for sentimental reasons. The blinking lights used to be my lullaby. Now they looked like tombstones. That night, I opened a bottle of scotch and reread the email HR had sent. A 45-day transition plan. I was to provide a full technical handover of every core system, write documentation, and attend planning sessions with the Cloud IQ consultants. I chuckled. They wanted my knowledge, right after discarding me like last week's firmware. I closed the email. And in that moment, something inside me changed. What they didn't know, what Marissa didn't bother to learn, was that the backbone of Altera's system wasn't written in manuals. It lived in my head. The bridges between the ancient ERP and their newer API endpoints. Custom scripts I wrote at 2 a.m. after emergency calls. The predictive routing engine that saved them $4 million a year. Designed over Christmas break, undocumented. Because I was the documentation. They wanted a clean handoff. But I wasn't going to make this easy. What I did next wasn't sabotage. It was honesty. I gave them what they asked for, on paper. The official architecture. The user guides. The data maps. Every piece of documented code. But as for the duct tape I'd used to keep their brittle system alive for the past decade, I left that out. Why? Because Marissa had made one thing crystal clear, my experience was obsolete. Fine. Let's see how they handle their brave new world, without me. 2 days after I turned in my official documentation, I got the first email. Urgent, legacy system timing out, shipment queue not advancing. I stared at the screen in my home office, sipping lukewarm coffee. The message came from Curtis, one of the junior developers. Good kid. Smart, but green. Probably just got roped into the Cloud IQ migration chaos. They were trying to merge my handcrafted, tightly wound logistics engine into a cloud-native framework they barely understood. It was like trying to install a Tesla engine into a 1970s Dodge. Not impossible, but you needed the blueprints. And those blueprints didn't exist in any Google Doc. They lived here, in me. I didn't reply. I didn't owe them that. But my gut twisted. Not because I cared about Marissa. But because I knew who would really pay the price for this transition train wreck: the drivers. The dispatchers. The customers. The people I actually gave a damn about. By Friday, I got 5 more emails, each more desperate than the last. They couldn't process East Coast shipments. Real-time GPS data wasn't syncing to the dispatch dashboard. Client API links were throwing authentication errors. Then the final straw. Subject line: urgent, entire routing system down, 6000 plus orders stuck in queue. I stared at the blinking notification as it popped up. The system was unraveling faster than I thought. I imagined the chaos: drivers with no manifests, angry retailers calling customer service, late-night conference calls filled with buzzwords and blame. Still, I said nothing. Instead, I closed the laptop and went for a walk. It was 6:42 p.m. Cold air hit my face like a slap. I walked past the old diner where I used to grab coffee before morning shifts. Past the bench where Ellen and I once sat after her last chemo session. Past the auto shop where I helped the owner set up a real-time inventory sync between his POS and suppliers, on my own time, just because I liked solving problems. And I realized something that shook me. I missed solving problems more than I missed being part of Altera. That night, around 10 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Same number. I finally answered. Scott. It was James Worthington, my old project manager. Stressed. Shaky. Desperate. They need you, man. The Cloud IQ team's completely stuck. The database rollback failed, and the order table's corrupted. Marissa's losing her mind. Clients are threatening lawsuits. I didn't say anything. Please, just tell me how to reconnect the Henderson Freight Bridge. You built it, right? Nothing's working. I paused. Then, slowly, I said, it requires a dual handshake authentication with a proprietary token. The token resets every 72 hours unless you feed it a synthetic heartbeat from the legacy side. If it misses 2 pings, it locks the port. James exhaled hard. Where is that coded? In the /legacy/vault_scripts/hnd_heartbeat.sh file, I replied. A long pause. That's not in any repo. Nope. It never was. It wasn't part of the official system. Just something I wrote on a weekend to keep Henderson happy. He whispered, "Oh my God." The next day, I received a formal email from HR. Subject: request for emergency consulting engagement, immediate availability required. They offered $75 an hour. I laughed out loud. 75? For the man who held the only working map of their digital labyrinth? I hit delete. Monday morning, I met with Janet Ellis at Apex Core Freight. She had offered me a short-term contract to evaluate their tech stack and recommend modernizations. I stepped into a sleek, minimal office space full of quiet, focused engineers and people who listened when I talked. I showed them one fix for their load balancing issue. 1. Their jaws dropped. Janet smiled. This is what we've been missing. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Marissa. I let it ring. Then I watched the headlines roll in. Altera Freight faces tech crisis, delays affect thousands. Major retail chains seek alternative logistics partners after glitch. Sources confirm system crash related to new cloud migration. My hands shook as I read. Not from guilt. From something else. Vindication? No. It was deeper. It was grief. Grief for what I built being destroyed by someone who never even walked into the server room. Later that evening, I got one last call. Marissa, again. I answered. Scott, she said, breathless. We need you. Name your price. I leaned back in my chair. $200 an hour. 60-hour minimum. Payable up front. You're insane. No, I said. I'm the only one who can save you. And I stopped working for free a long time ago. I thought I was done with them. Thought I'd walked away clean. But on Wednesday morning, 3 days into my consulting contract with Apex Corps, I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in nearly 12 years. Scott. It was Maria Chan. She used to be Altera's lead compliance officer before she left the company, right after the Transnorth acquisition. Quiet. Razor sharp. Underappreciated like the rest of us who weren't part of the MBA class. Maria? Wow. You still in Columbus? Still here. But that's not why I'm calling. She hesitated. You need to see something. She sent me a zipped archive of log files from an old server instance I'd completely forgotten about, alt-datenst02, buried behind the primary database, used as a secondary logging relay for the shipment router. Why was this important? Because that system should have been decommissioned 8 years ago. It wasn't. And inside one of the log folders was a hidden file, backtrace.log.old, filled with timestamps, user IDs, and a flag. A flag I had built. One that automatically recorded when high-level access credentials were used outside standard operational windows. I opened the file. And there it was. Access, Marissa.Delacroix IP, 10.4.2.118 timestamp, 3:17 a.m. operation, modify _system _cost _logic. My heart stopped. That timestamp? It was 2 days before she fired me. And the operation? She'd modified the routing logic to inflate shipment priority charges on key clients. I dug deeper. Over the next 2 hours, I traced the logs and reconstructed what she'd done. She had inserted a cost-bumping rule that tagged certain shipment types with a priority surcharge flag, even when no such service was requested. That flag triggered billing increases of up to 12% for preferred clients, automatically. Worst part. The change was masked under the guise of a performance enhancement in the new cloud migration scope. She was cooking the books. Slowly. Strategically. And I had just found the evidence. I called Maria back. Did you know about this? I asked. She was quiet. I suspected. That's why I kept those files. Why now? Because I read the reports about the system crash. If she's trying to pin this disaster on you, I figured you should know what kind of fire she's really playing with. I stared at the folder. Scott, Maria said, voice low. If you release this, it won't just hurt her. It'll collapse the entire executive branch. She's not the only one benefiting. I sat back in my chair. That's when it hit me. They didn't fire me just because I was too old. They fired me because I knew too much. They needed me out of the way, before the migration launched, so they could bury the manipulation inside transformation efforts. A convenient purge. A controlled burn. I copied the folder to a secure drive. Then I printed one single page, the log entry with Marissa's access and operation time. And I mailed it anonymously, to the Altera board's audit committee. No signature. No return address. Just the truth, in black and white. That night, I slept deeper than I had in months. But I knew this wasn't over. If I wanted real justice, not just vengeance, I needed to be smart. And precise. They had tried to erase me. Now, I'd turn their own systems against them. They say revenge is best served cold. But mine? It was going to be engineered. Strategic. Surgical. Because I wasn't just after Marissa. I wanted every executive who nodded in that conference room while I was dismissed like I hadn't written the very software holding their empire together. After Maria's tip and the evidence I sent to the audit committee, I started putting together my plan. Step 1 was simple: isolate the system weaknesses. I knew Altera's entire tech architecture like I knew my own breathing. The new Cloud IQ platform was fast, but brittle. They built it assuming everything I'd made was neatly archived and well documented. It wasn't. And worse, they'd never realized how many of their mission-critical operations still relied on tiny, overlooked custom scripts I'd slipped into the background over decades. Little pulse checks here. Priority syncs there. They called it legacy clutter. But that clutter was what kept their trucks running on time. At Apex Core, Janet gave me full freedom. And I made the most of it. I didn't just help them fix routing logic, I quietly replicated Altera's core engine structure. But better. Stronger. Fully documented. Open source based where it mattered. Modular where it didn't. I rebuilt my old architecture from the ground up, not to destroy Altera, but to offer their biggest clients a viable alternative. It was a technical coup in slow motion. Step 2. Reach the right ears. Tom Brennan was the key. He'd been one of Altera's top client liaisons, until Marissa pushed him out during her talent refresh. Now, he worked with Meridian Freight, a major player, and a company tired of delays. I called him. T. Bren, I said. You ready to watch some fireworks? I sent him a confidential pitch deck. Outlining how Apex Core's new system, designed by yours truly, could offer lower latency, faster routing, and zero dependency on unstable integrations. He read it twice. You rebuilt the entire thing, he whispered. Better. And with none of the data leakage issues. He whistled. How soon can we demo it? Next week. Within 48 hours, Apex Core was fielding inbound calls from 3 companies previously serviced by Altera. My new system, once considered obsolete by Marissa's standards, was now looking like a lifeline to her own clients. Step 3. Leak the second shoe. The initial audit committee letter had stirred the waters. But now, I had more. Maria helped me obtain a quiet trail of internal emails. Marissa had not only tampered with cost logic, she'd also directed her staff to backdate logs to make it seem like the code changes were part of a routine update package. Fraud. Clear as day. I prepared a short, 5-page dossier and sent it, again anonymously, to a reporter at Logistics Today, a trade magazine that Altera had cozied up to during every PR cycle. By Friday morning, the headline dropped. Whistleblower claims Altera exec manipulated billing code to inflate client costs. It didn't name names. But it didn't have to. Anyone inside Altera who knew the system knew exactly who had access to that code. Marissa called me at 7:02 a.m. For the first time, she didn't sound smug. She sounded scared. Scott, I need to know, did you leak something to the press? No, I said calmly. But you should have never touched that shipment cost logic. A long pause. You have no idea what you've done. No, Marissa. You don't. Click. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the wall. The house of cards was swaying. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because the final part of the plan wasn't to break Altera's system. It was to make them beg for the man they threw away. It was 4:03 a.m. when I pressed enter. Just one command. A simple scheduled API call that would expire an old authentication token embedded in one of Altera's forgotten legacy routing bridges. The one their entire eastbound logistics chain still unknowingly depended on. Within minutes, I watched the pings drop, quiet, silent lights blinking off on my private diagnostic dashboard. By the time most of Altera's office staff showed up for work that Monday morning, chaos had already taken root. I got the first call at 7:46 a.m. Not from Marissa. From James. "Scott," he whispered. "Everything's down. We can't reach Henderson Freight's routing system. Again. Our backup routing server is throwing auth failed errors. Nothing's syncing. Orders are stuck." I didn't respond right away. "You didn't, you wouldn't. I told you weeks ago," I said calmly. "Everything not documented was out of scope. And you all said you were moving in a new direction." "Yeah, but, Scott, this is bad. We have 700 trucks idling and no one knows where to send them. And yet. I'm sure Cloud IQ has it under control," I said. A pause. "They're gone." "What?" "They pulled out of the contract Friday night. After the article dropped, legal got involved. Nobody wants to touch this mess now." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. By noon, the executive floor at Altera was in full meltdown. Client phone lines jammed. Internal messaging frozen. Developers, some who I mentored, working 16-hour shifts trying to unpick dependencies they didn't even know existed. I knew they'd try to roll back to old backups. But those backups were missing the real key, the patching logic. The custom layers that interfaced between the cloud platform and the legacy routing brain. I hadn't removed anything. I had simply never shared it. And while they scrambled, Apex Core was thriving. Janet, Tom, and I launched the pilot program with Meridian Freight that same day. Real-time shipment tracking, route optimization, 0 failures. Word traveled fast. By Thursday, Apex Core had interest from 3 more regional carriers, 2 of which were former Altera clients. I didn't need to brag. The work spoke for itself. Marissa finally called again. This time, she didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She just sounded hollow. "Scott, I was wrong. That silence between us. It felt like 30 years of swallowed pride boiling to the surface. You didn't just keep this place running," she admitted. "You were the heartbeat." "I know. We're hemorrhaging clients. Transglobal is furious. There's talk of dissolving the entire eastbound logistics branch. Do you still have the integration protocols? The ones for Henderson, Ironwood, Keller Transport?" "I do." Another pause. "Will you help us?" I looked around my new office at Apex Core. Team members solving problems together. Engineers who asked questions, instead of pretending to know everything. A whiteboard filled with ideas and none of them prefaced with marketing jargon. Finally, I said. "My consulting rate is $200 an hour. Minimum 80-hour engagement. Paid up front. That's over $16,000. No. That's what I'm worth." She didn't answer right away. But I knew she had no choice. I was no longer just Scott the systems guy. I was the architect of her salvation. Or her ruin. Friday morning. The sky over Dayton was iron gray and hung low like it was waiting to crush something. I was sitting at my desk at Apex Core, finishing up route analytics for our 3rd new client that week, when my phone buzzed. Not a call this time. An email. Subject, urgent inquiry, Transglobal Holdings. I opened it, my stomach turning. "Dear Mr. Randall. I am David Wells, chairman of the board at Transglobal Holdings. I would appreciate the opportunity to speak with you personally regarding the current crisis at Altera Freight Systems. Please let me know your earliest availability. David Wells." The chairman. Not HR. Not legal. Not even Marissa. This was the top of the food chain. And they weren't calling to threaten. They were calling because they were bleeding. We spoke at noon. He was calm. Measured. Too calm. Mr. Randall, I'll get right to it. Altera is in freefall. Our cloud migration was rushed and, frankly, mismanaged. I've reviewed the reports. You built a system that worked flawlessly for 3 decades. And now we are 3 days from losing another $10 million contract. I didn't say anything. I've also seen the logs, he continued. The billing manipulation. The fraudulent audit trails. Marissa is under internal investigation. I blinked. You're investigating her. She's been placed on administrative leave, pending a full forensic review. The silence on my end must have spoken volumes. You're surprised, he said. No. Just, disappointed it took this long. Then came the twist. Mr. Randall, we want you back. He didn't stutter. Didn't hedge. We need you to return to Altera as Chief Systems Architect. Full reinstatement. Name your terms. For a moment, I actually leaned back in my chair and thought about it. 30 years of my life, and now they wanted me back. Not as a contractor. Not as a backup. But to lead. Still, it didn't feel right. Mr. Wells, I said carefully, this isn't just about me. This is about what your leadership allowed. You built a culture that chased buzzwords over backbone. You let them replace architects with consultants who knew how to pitch slides but not how to build stability. I agree, he said simply. We also want your input on who leads the digital division moving forward. That's when it hit me. They weren't just offering me a job. They were offering me Marissa's job. But power, I've learned, is only satisfying when you can choose not to use it. I didn't want to go back. Not to clean up their mess. Not to babysit an executive team that had once clapped while I was shoved out the door. I appreciate the offer, I said slowly, but I've already started something new. Something better. Something built on respect. I expected him to argue. He didn't. Instead, he sighed. I thought you'd say that. But I had to try. For what it's worth, I admire what you've done. I was quiet. Then let me give you something in return, he said. Another twist. Marissa tried to pin the entire system failure on you. She submitted an internal memo claiming you sabotaged the legacy code before you left. My pulse thudded. But our forensic analysis proved otherwise, he continued. We found timestamps from weeks before you left, patches and changes made under her credentials. Her downfall is inevitable. Why are you telling me this? Because I wanted you to know, we see you clearly now. And, maybe we failed you more than we knew. I hung up the phone. Walked outside into the overcast light. And I stood there, for a long time, breathing in the cool air. For years, I'd been invisible. Just an old guy in IT. Now the most powerful man in the company was telling me I had won. But it wasn't about winning anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity, and watching the empire that tried to erase me fall under its own arrogance. The news broke on Monday. Altera Freight Systems sold to Henderson Logistics in emergency acquisition. Just like that, 30 years of infrastructure, clients, and routes, all scooped up in a distressed sale for pennies on the dollar. The same Henderson Freight I once built a handshake integration for in a panic over a long weekend. They now own the company that called me obsolete. Poetic, wasn't it? The article quoted an unnamed source from Transglobal Holdings. A catastrophic failure in cloud migration, paired with internal fraud, forced our hand. This was preventable. I laughed when I read that part. Preventable? All they had to do was listen. To slow down. To respect the people who'd kept them running for decades, not replace them with buzzwords and ambition. Marissa was never mentioned by name. But those of us who'd lived through it all didn't need confirmation. She was done. Last I heard, she'd taken a contract job at a Silicon Valley startup, some cryptocurrency logistics hybrid that burned through investors faster than servers. No more private office. No more PowerPoint decks about transformation. Just her and a laptop. As for me, I stayed with Apex Core. The system I rebuilt, modular, documented, adaptable, quickly became the backbone of our entire operation. We signed 5 major logistics partners in 3 months. The calls haven't stopped. Janet made me CTO by the end of the quarter. Tom leads strategic partnerships. Maria? She joined us too, compliance head. We called ourselves the leftovers from Altera. The cast-offs. But we built something real. Something built to last. One rainy afternoon, I got an email. From Frank Veltrin himself, the founder of the original company before Transglobal bought them out. Scott, I heard what happened. You always were the heart of this place. If you ever want to build something from scratch again, I'm ready. I saved that email. Haven't replied yet. Maybe I will one day. Maybe not. Because I already am building something. Not just software, but a culture. A new kind of company. One where the gray in your hair doesn't make you invisible. Where experience isn't treated like a virus. Where loyalty is rewarded, not punished. A few days ago, I walked by the old Altera building. Empty now. Vacant lot signs out front. Dead leaves swirling through the parking lot where I used to arrive before sunrise every day. And for a moment, I felt something close to grief. Not for the company. But for the man I was back then. The one who gave everything without asking for recognition. He deserved better. And now, he got it. I don't think revenge always has to be loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Measured. Just a man standing at the ruins of a kingdom he once built, knowing he didn't have to burn it down, because they did that to themselves. All I did was walk away. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.